years from now, what is more likely? Joe Burrow is a Bengal or the Bengals are leaving Cincinnati? Because I don't think you can have one without the other.
Yeah, I would say more likely that. I mean, I don't think the Bengals are going to leave. Now don't go breathing sighs of relief. Okay, I'm not saying that's.
There of how to perform.
Can I tell you one thing that we are giving? And this is not like a, like this. It's not like that. It's a very humble thing.
Okay.
We make people laugh. And yet?
Sure can. Yeah, ready?
Okay, I kind of rehearsed this, but I just got to get this point out. Okay. To me, this man is a hero in the city of Cincinnati and Bengals fans everywhere. And it's for one of many reasons, but the one reason to me will be because of this, and I quote, Joe, just to get this out of the way, if the Bengals select you at number 1, would you happily report to go play for them? Chills because of that. He is a legend. Paul Dehner Jr. Let's go.
What's up?
I had to rewatch that YouTube clip before I got on the pod to make sure I got the cadence right, because I will forever, you have no idea how exciting this is and how much that question, man. I don't think that gets talked about enough. I think your nickname Downer Jr. went completely out the window, and Bengal fans need to be forever grateful to you because of that one question, because you brought Joe Burrow to Bengals fans that day on February
I just
24th.
tried to bring truth to ridiculousness that was happening over that period of time, whereas everybody was talking about all the wrong things, trying to fabricate this and make this be a thing, and I was like, all you got to do is ask Joe if he'll go play for the Bengals. And so I staked out the spot and asked Joe if he was going to play for the Bengals, and he said yes, and I walked away.
I remember the pod leading up to that too, because you said, I'm going to ask him the question. I'm like, okay, yeah, he might. I set an alarm for 6, whatever time it was, and I'm in LA, so I'm 3 hours behind. I set an alarm that morning because I knew the question was coming, and I set the alarm. I checked my Twitter, and sure enough, first thing is that question. I see his reaction, and I'm not kidding. I go to bed in peace. Fast forward 10 hours later, I go to work. That question alone and answer got me through a night of work. Just hearing that over and over. So you have no idea.
Man, that is early, because that was early for me that morning. I can only imagine what it was like for you at about 6 a.m.
Sorry, I can talk all day, John. This is my cousin John, but anyways, I had to get that out.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Hey, so Paul Dehner Jr. This is big for my cousin and me. We've been listening to you for, a better part of over a decade. Obviously, you're a Cincinnati, native. This is, the Bengals probably mean as much to you as us. We're a little bit more unorthodox in our fandom, and we're a little bit more out there, I would say, whereas you're a little bit more calculated. But this is truly really big for us, this is all centered around COVID. You talk about the chaos that went on around the time of the draft and everything. This whole podcast was an idea centered around COVID. We were bored, and we have this conversation every week. And when we talk about the Bengals on Wednesdays, and now we turn it into what we call the greatest Bengals FaceTime in our Bengals history. So there you go. Thank you again.
Dude, honestly, we have no business having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Man.
We know you're a little pressed for time, so you want to get right into the meat and the bones.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's go.
Okay, this is gonna be a show about Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Obviously, we know everything that happened on Sunday. One of the first questions that I wanted to get right into, and I'm just going to ask, this is a question I was actually going to save for later, but I just want to get right into it. 6 years from now, what is more likely? Joe Burrow is a Bengal or the Bengals are leaving Cincinnati? Because I don't think you can have one without the other.
Yeah, I would say more likely that. I mean, I don't think the Bengals are gonna leave. I mean, now don't go breathing sighs of relief. Okay, I'm not saying that that's out of the question. There is a very contentious extension of the stadium conversation that's going to start happening in the next 5 years. That's just so hard to predict and wade through at this point. Like, there's just a lot of variables, and inevitably, if they are connected, because if Joe Burrow wins here and is good here and finds a home here, then they're not going to go anywhere because the fans are going to buy back in and want him to stick around. And, it'd be like San Francisco kicking the 49ers out in 1984. Like that, if you think you're about to have 10 years of Joe Montana and what you think he's this great thing, there's going to be excitement about him, and there's going to be a need to try to keep them around and not want to kick them out. Also, don't forget, while the lease ends, it also just has 5 2-year rolling extensions on the end of it. That is kick the can down the road material, if you've ever seen it, where you can keep the Bengals in town, keep negotiating, keep figuring it out, and that puts you into we're in 2036. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be alive in 2021, much less talking about 15 years from now. So for now, I'm not gonna kick them out of town just yet.
Okay, that's I want to get that out of the way just right away, because there's more to get into. Yes.
This is I think the narrative around this weekend, having someone like yourself, immersed in the media, and the article that you put up on the Athletic about, to blame what happened on Sunday. And and it's sort of those questions that are us as fans, and you went right into the meat of it. But I think a lot of fans are putting a lot of blame in certain places. And Sam and I have had a few conversations where our even opinion changes within the conversation. For us, it's easy to look at it and say, like, well, this was inevitable. It's the offensive line, blah, 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 blah. But we just had Dan Horde on 3 weeks ago where we were praising the offensive line and the way that Jim Turner, kind of stepped up, and this coaching staff got that plug and play offensive line ready to go to beat a Tennessee Titans team that was in the AFC Championship a year ago. So, I mean, from your standpoint, for us, as it constantly changes, really, who is the most to blame, if there is a blame game, or was it just a freak accident in your opinion? Where are we on Wednesday where, actually the initial reaction is over from the fan base and the media?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a pie, right? Like it's not like it's all on one person's shoulders I think everybody has their own role in it. I mean, I go back to this. I just remember writing it and talking about it all off season of, why can't you just have a really good line? Like, why do we have to talk about development and betting on guys that were unproven and serviceability and that? Why can't you just say, we're going to go have a great line because we got this quarterback? And that wasn't the direction they went. Now, people were happy with all the money they spent to make the defense good. And it's true. You cannot fix it all in one offseason when you look at the myriad problems that they had, and that's fine. But I think the decision, because they were at that crossroads of, we can either put this money into making the defense is way better and bet on development off the offensive line, or we can make sure the offensive line is good and get to the defense maybe a little bit further down the line. And when you had Joe Burrow as number one guy, it's so easy to see, like, well, why don't you just make sure you get that line first? And you could have, did you know, I actually didn't even realize the specifics of the exact deal. The Trey Waynes and the Jack Conklin deal are the exact same. 3 years, 42. They come to Cincinnati. Does that mean he would have came here over going to Cleveland? I don't know. But how you would be like, you know what? Let's make sure we shore up corner instead of let's shore up tackle when you drafted Joe Burrow is a decision that you just shrug at. Or saying, okay, let's just go the cheap route on Xavier Su'a-Filo rather than going for something a little bit more aggressive, an $8 to $10 million guard. Does that guy get hurt in week 1 too? Maybe. I don't know, but there's just been this lack of aggression there that's frustrating. That said, I don't hold it against the coaching staff, particularly if you look at if they would kept going with the plan of what was happening over the first 4 weeks, and it kept looking the same, and this happens, they're on the table. The last 6 weeks they had been one of the better, if not certainly average by any metric you look at, whether we're talking about sacks, pressure percentage, knockdowns, whatever it is. I mean, those numbers are out there, and I have them. And they're doing fine. Like you said, after Tennessee, you're praising Jim Turner, and you're talking about the way they've handled things. They had figured out a way to make Joe Burrow's strengths offset some of the weaknesses there, and they were moving the ball. The offense was as dynamic as it had been here in a long time. So do we hold it against them for moving the ball and having a dynamic offense when everyone's pressing on them and yelling 420 and 1 at them? I don't, and that happened, and it was ugly, and it sucks. Yeah. But I also say, guys get hurt. When Drew Brees has 11 cracked ribs, are people trying to fire Sean Payton? They're trying to win games, and they were an average to, whatever offensive line there for the last 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I don't hold it against them for the game plan or how they're using him. To me, it goes back to the prioritization of the offseason more so than anything.
This is probably not the best comparison, but when I walked away, it was John had this hot take. I think it was about 2 or 3 years after the 2015 season, saying that Marvin Lewis should have gone after the 2015 season because of how everything just played out. And then after an injury like is this injury so monumental that it touches the coaching staff as a whole? Or do you feel that Zach Taylor is good, but you can feel that wave of change coming in every other personnel decision coming, even from a Jim Turner, even from a Lou Anarumo, which I don't know if we can even get to that hot take yet about that article that came out. Do you foresee this coaching staff being the same in 2021 after an incident like this, or what do you foresee going for the Zach Taylor era right now?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, knowing the front office, they're so patient, and they are so understanding, and people would say they make excuses, but they're not knee-jerk. They are the opposite of today's society. I mean, they've proven it over and over and over again. They're not going to let a narrative, an injury, anything like that change the way they feel about things. They're going to let the season play out, and they're going to sit and look at the totality of the judgment. The injury is the biggest thing that happened this season outside of Burrow proving that he's a great quarterback. And so that there is responsibility and judging if you want to continue to have this staff be the caretaker of that. But, kind of like I just talked about, but I don't see it being like you said, monumental. I don't think they'll view this as a monumental injury per se. They will view it as an injury that happened and it sucks and they hated it, but not something that should be the thing that changes the way that they, as the front office, view the direction that the team is headed. And so I don't think they were happy with the direction the team was headed before this because of the losses, but also there was this thought that they were literally in the brink. That was the moment in time, the second half of a close Washington game, that this team was supposed to turn the corner on the rebuild. And maybe they weren't going to, but they were moving the ball up and down the field without being stopped. And this was going to be all these winnable games. This was supposed to be the foundation for 2021 and the foundation for everything this staff has been building. And then the moment that's about to happen, you have this. Wow. And so I don't see them bailing on that just because this injury took that away.
Even from top to bottom, like
that's the offensive side of the ball.
Okay.
I do see them bailing on the defensive side of the ball. I do sense the frustration with what has happened there. I do sense, you've had 2 years and they piled all of this money into that defense. Now, granted, they've gotten hardly anything out of it because of injuries, but there was expectations that it would be better. It didn't sit well having to deal with the Carlos Dunlap situation. That's their guy. They gave him the extension. He's been good here for years. Why couldn't you get him to be good? And then watching them play good in Seattle ain't going to help. And it's like that goes back to coaching. So I think, the defensive side of the ball, you could certainly see being the scapegoat, and the fact that Joe Burrow really has spoken pretty much universally about how much he likes the coaching staff, being the reason that you would keep everybody else around.
Yeah, and I guess to piggyback off that, we've talked about, you've mentioned the offseason that we had, and when we did focus on the defensive side of the ball more so, and then addressed, it seems like we struck a little bit of gold with Hakeem Adeniji over at right tackle, and he seems to maybe have found a spot there. That being said, does our draft now with Joe Burrow's injury, does our draft focus change? Do we go after, if we were projected to finish third or a top 5 pick, I think third is our position right now. Do we go after the kid from Oregon? Even though it seems like our tackles are pretty good, do you make those shifts, or do we even address defense like we talked about last week?
I mean, if they're picking third and the Oregon kid's there, it's over. It's turn the card in. I mean, you can figure it out later. More good offensive linemen. I think, if they're picking third and they can get him and then sign a real lineman at any other position, guard, whatever, whether you're whoever you're talking about, some guy that's out there that costs $10+ million that you can put in the interior, and that the rest of it can figure itself out between Spain and Jordan and Suafilo and all those guys fighting it out, and you can have Sewell and Jonah on the edges, or however you do that. And then you can have a real player, Sheriff, whoever the hell, at guard, and then Suafilo at guard and Trey Hopkins. That is something you feel really comfortable about, solidify it. And then you have Adeniji and maybe even Bobby Hart still as your backup tackle guys. And that is what a real line is supposed to look like, depth-wise and at the top level. And I think you can find comfort in that. I still think you start – I mean, they still don't have an edge rusher. They are a pass rusher. They still need somebody that can get after the quarterback for the next, 5 years. So that's on the board. There's a lot of things on the board. But, the thing is, this draft sets up where you have him and then you fall a pretty steep bunch of guys in the middle.
Sure.
So, that point – you start thinking, okay, are people trying to trade up for quarterbacks? Are people trying to what is going on? But that's so far off right now. If it's the Oregon kid, absolutely turn on the card immediately if he's available. If it's not, then you get into a lot of different discussions about where to go.
Well, and that was the thing is, like, you put out this morning 40 minutes ago, as Twitter alluded to, the Bengals are going with Brendan Allen over Ryan Finley. And to me, and I know this sounds horrible as a fan, and it's not coming from like the ignorance, but like at this point, I mean, yes, you're playing for wins. Like, I'm looking because of that Oregon kid. Like, I just want to get I just want to get the line figured out, because we've been trying to do this since Andrew Whitworth left after being described at one point as an overaged right tackle, an overaged tackle. So, I mean, as a fan, I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, if there's one thing as a Bengals fan, it was what got you up in the morning. It was the fact that number 9 was going to trot out the field, and what is he going to do? Like, let's just see this thing play out. Is there a pause? I mean, this sounds so stupid to say. Is there a positive to winning the rest of the games and having that mid-round pick? Or if you're speaking just from the rebuild standpoint, is it almost better to just kind of maybe hope you get 1 or 2 wins, maybe that one win being against Pittsburgh and the rest, so you can set up for that draft? Or is the draft such a crapshoot that you don't really care in the long run?
Zach Taylor needs to win games. And so I don't think it goes any further than that. Like, they are going to do whatever they have to find a way to do to win some games and get people feeling better around there, because otherwise it's the long, hard off season, and you don't want to be sitting in that meeting with Mike Brown the day after the season ends and saying, and making excuses about the quarterback for the last 6 weeks, and you couldn't find a way to scrape something out against Houston and Dallas and the Giants and whatever. Like, that's important. You worry about the draft later. If they ever proved it, that's the philosophy and the way they stand about it. It was last year when they had zero reason to be winning down the stretch, even more so than this year. At least, this year you're talking about there's a lot of different guys that'll be available at 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you could be talking about Jamar Chase reuniting with Joe Burrow. So, there's a lot of options available. We're not talking about Joe Burrow or nobody, whereas last year was the craziness.
I'm really quick to interject. That game could be a 30 for 30, that Miami game. You know how close we were to, like, That was
don't worry.
it was almost like the
don't
reverse
worry.
of the curse by winning.
I plan on going back. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to do the next 6 weeks because the games aren't real interesting. So that trip to back to Miami might just involve a look back at last year. So,
well, hey, Paul, you're more than welcome to come on here and jump on and talk with us because we're going to be looking for content too.
everybody is. That's it's really it's really the hardest thing from our perspective. Like inevitably, like teams win, teams lose. We cover them the same. You just want them to be relevant and interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what sucks right now is the next 6 weeks suddenly are not relevant or interesting for this team. And that's for people that cover it. That's the hard part. I don't care. Like, I don't care if they win or lose necessarily, but when they're not interesting, people aren't reading, they're not listening, they don't care, and you fall off. And so for us, from our perspective, as our business,
Yeah,
I mean, that's what everyone's sort of affected by that, because the Burrow effect was real for all of us here too. I mean, people were now all of a sudden cared about the Bengals again, and you see it in the numbers, you see it in the listenership, you see it in things like this, and it's cool. It's it makes the job fun again, as opposed to the last 5 years where it's just you're saying and writing the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day. And I know your time's precious here, so we've been around about 20 minutes. So I just have one more real quick thing for you.
I have one more after that, and then.
All right, yeah, I'll let Sam.
All right, one more piece, guys.
Right,
Yeah.
I'll let Sam finish it up. But I did want to kind of address the article about the locker room that came out, and I'm and Sam's more of an optimistic guy, whereas there is no smoke without fire. And I asked him, I posed this question to him, and maybe you see something to it, but obviously with COVID, there's less presence within the locker room. So I guess trying to get an idea or a temperature check of how the locker room really is for the media to report is probably a lot more difficult this year than any other season. How much are you putting into that article, or is it just kind of it's just another reactionary thing to what happened with Burrow? Is that something?
Well, there's two things I'll say about it. One is I don't personally like talking about other people's reporting.
Right.
I don't want people talking about my reporting
and
questioning it. And I'm not going to question Elise's reporting. I have a lot of respect for Elise. She's a friend. She did good work when she was here. She's working hard to be in business now. I'll say this. I'll just talk my view of culture. And I feel like people obviously are not going to be happy there. They're 2-7-1. They just lost their guy. There's lots of blame. Everyone's blaming everybody. There's lots of that to go around. You had the Dunlap thing, everything there is a new coaching staff that obviously has their guys. Every new coaching staff has their guys. Mm-hmm. And the old guys, especially if they get displaced, are not going to like that and don't like that. And I wouldn't expect them to. And I would expect them to say these guys are morons. Because if I was on Mo's show yesterday, and I said, if my boss came to me, I got a new boss, and he came in to me after a month and said, you know what? You're going to cover intramural kickball from now on is where I think you belong. I'm going to say this guy is a moron, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what I've been doing around here for the last 10 years. That's happening everywhere. Guys are being displaced everywhere. Now, because I don't know the sources that are anonymous here. I don't know any of that. I know that I would expect the culture to be having a rough stretch for the rest of this year because they aren't winning games. And, so that's part of this. And especially when you're displacing old people and there's a new group trying to come in and move it forward, led by Burrow and all these free agents and Von Bell and the guys that were elected captain, like Giovanni is still one of the old time guys. It's still part of it. But a lot of those that were part of the old Marvin Lewis regime have been kicked to the background, like consistently. Just look at the playing time. Those are the people that are understandably pissed and mad and still in the locker room. So that creates dissension. It creates a choosing of sides. It creates all of that crap. And so that's where it's at right now. And until you get through one more cycle where that is all washed out, and the discontents are all washed out for the most part, you're never going to really come clear. And you have to win. That's why the second half of this season was going to be so important, was because they were going to win and they were going to build belief and trust and all of that things. When you're to whatever and whatever, like, it's just, this is what it looks like. Does that mean that the toxic culture and trust, and I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know, like that. Things are bad when you lose, and then when you win and you go through an off season of hope, it comes back and it tends to get better. So it's all, and then you throw in exactly what you said in your question. None of us are in there. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to have been there after the Washington game and really read the room, but no one has read a room all year, and so it's really hard to say anything with complete certainty. And that's outside of that, I mean, it's all, it's a lot of shrugs on it.
Yeah, and I guess that, just to address it, that's kind of what my point to the question was. I guess from the media standpoint, it's got to be a lot harder to just gauge that. So I was that's kind of what I was getting towards to the questions. I appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
My last question. I know we're kind of looking at the 2021 season with Joe Burrow, but if you look at the schedule, we play Green Bay. There's a man that you worked with for some years, and he might be coming back for the Green Bay Bengals game. Will there be a stadium tour reunion show, or is that relationship just?
Oh man, yeah, a stadium tour reunion.
Going down the elevator was the best.
Oh yeah, the escalator one. That was pretty good. I forgot about that one. That one was.
No, I will never.
The escalator one was my favorite.
Exactly. Yes.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Maybe I can guarantee you this. Even though he technically kind of works for a competing organization, that he will be back on the podcast Green Bay week. Maybe before. Okay. There is no doubt that we will reunite there. Now, as far as riding an escalator together, I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to rule it out. So I'm always going to keep it in play.
You saved it for a perfect point. It was for the Pittsburgh game, and I'm like, and we went to that game when it happened, like the day before that, and we watched it. I'm like, gosh dang it. But yeah, I just want to make, and then also, did your parents re-up their season tickets after Joe Burrow got drafted, or was that? Because I remember you said they go.
They enjoy the basement view too much. It is it's quite a setup down there. So they're very happy, and I don't think they're going to be going back. To
Joe Burrow couldn't even get them out. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're just really like the warmth of the fireplace.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Did you want to ask him the 1A question? G or S?
Oh yeah. We always ask, and you're from Cincinnati, so I'm assuming, or been there for a while.
S.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I assume.
I mean, you're talking about Skyline, right?
Skyline versus Gold. So we asked it to everybody. Yeah.
Why would anyone pick Gold? I don't understand this. Like, are there people that say Gold Star, and when they do, I hope you just kick them immediately out of the Zoom?
Yeah, it's not. We have Ben from ESPN. Ben Baby from ESPN. He's from Texas, so he was. I'm
sure he went on a long rant about chili. I'm sure he did.
He can't have three ways because they're not. It's too wet and it doesn't.
I know.
Yeah, we get it.
It's not for people not from here, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
That's the thing. Anytime anybody says that's garbage, that's trash, I'm like, yeah, you probably do think that, because if you didn't grow up here, you don't like it, and I think we prefer it that way.
That's right. Well,
we could not be more thankful for your time. I hope we can.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. I'm glad we could hook it up.
Yeah, yes, and down the road, we want to keep this going. Maybe one day we'll get you down the road, maybe closer to draft time, or when the next big, anything else comes into Cincinnati.
Post-draft. Let's do something post-draft.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey,
Jay, have fun on Big Wednesday today. I'll be listening for your questions. And thank you so much for your time, man.
All right.
All right. Sounds great, guys.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, then Paul Dehner Jr., what do you think?
The boys are killing it.
It's becoming more and more routine and becoming a little bit easier. The expectations there of how to perform.
Can I tell you one thing that we are giving? And this is not like a, like this. It's not like that. It's a very humble thing.
Okay.
We make people laugh. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, and he had the first, right away he started to laugh. And I think it's a pretty good dynamic between me and you is like you have this encyclopedia of knowledge about Bengals stuff that I just can't even comprehend. But when you bring up things like
Yeah.
certain dates or certain instances or anything like that, I mean, it makes my job a lot easier to transition to the actual question and kind of hold it in. So yeah, we're doing okay. We're getting
Yeah,
there.
there was one time where you're asking a question and I'm like, holy shoot, I don't have a question after this. But then I was like, it's kind of like you're like, okay, I got one. Yep, I found it. But no, I think not to make the rest of this podcast because I think, hey, just a quick time check. How long did we get? Was it 20 minutes or maybe
25?
Oh,
Closer to 30.
Sorry.
Yeah, closer to 30.
I drank a lot of coffee this morning.
He did. He definitely seemed like he was kind of, I didn't want to push it.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. But I mean, our goal is to always our subconscious goal is to always beat our goal, to go above the bar, if you will.
And I was like, with Jerry, it looked a little different. Jerry looked like he was having his breakfast. He had his, he was kind of all over the place. He's just getting his day started. So an extra 15 minutes from him, I feel like was a little easier to ask, or, to kind of push. But then here with PDJ, he's got, I mean, the fact that he at 9 a.m. on Big Wednesday,
big after this Brandon Allen thing came out too.
Right. So to get him on,
I was so excited. I'm like, I can't believe we just. I mean, and the really quick thing, I want to cut this off in like the next 4.5 minutes, because then I have to edit out all the time that we talk after the FaceTime. He had this Brandon Allen thing come out, and we weren't even going to have a show. I honestly was like, we're taking the week off. Like, who are we going to effing talk to? Like, who's going to come on that we can talk to that can give good listening material? And I don't think you can find a better guest coming off of the injury that happened on Sunday than him. Because, like I said, to bring it full circle, and why I made that intro so much is because essentially I believe, and I know that's a far stretch, he brought Joe Burrow to the Bengal fan base. And for him to elaborate that a day before –
he played a part.
Yeah, honestly, a big part. I mean, like, for people who didn't, like, if it was a lot of, and the reason I find this so fascinating is because he didn't have to ask the question. He could have just let this marinate and get all the headlines and everything like that. But he knew that there was a story there that no one else was going to try to take. No big media member was going to try to get that option that Joe Burrow actually wanted to come to Cincinnati. And he stepped up to the plate and he asked that question in front of all the biggest media members. And another thing that I don't know if you know this, but he did a podcast about that whole little instance. He got there an hour and a half to watch some other guy's press conference so he could get his spot. So then the next round, like, he sat there for an hour and a half just to make sure he got that one question out. And that's why.
Are you surprised though?
That he did that?
Yeah.
No, personally me, but I just don't think that the Cincinnati fan base, because they're always got Paul Dehner Jr. And I didn't really. I mean, over the years are just like, man, say what you want about the guy, but the guy's an honest, hard-working, truthful.
Always no BS.
No BS. And he's from Cincinnati. Like I said, his parents were season ticket holders.
Right.
So they're obviously had some. He grew up in Cincinnati. As The Rock said, I grew up in this town. I walked Hall in this town. But anyways, yeah, I just think that
his dad worked at the mill.
Paul Dehner Jr. comes up and he says, "Hey, this is my town." Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think like what I was going to allude to is just for Thanksgiving and all this.
Oh, we didn't say Happy Thanksgiving. You got to be shitting me.
It's not Thanksgiving though. That's why you can't say it.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, because why would I say Happy Thanksgiving? Hey, Merry Christmas. It's not Christmas.
We say Happy Holidays all the time for a month straight.
Well, that's your problem. But the solution is we got a guy on the eve of I could have said Happy Thanksgiving Eve, but on the eve of Thanksgiving, we have some really good listening material for people who are going to be riding those turkeys and cooking that pie and whatever is. We're going to be the sounds of Thanksgiving.
You know who I think we should have on next week?
Nick Lachey.
Well, duh. Do you think, honestly, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being yes, 1 being no, absolutely no way in hell, where is your gauge on us getting Nick Lachey to jump on the MBB?
For this year or just at one day?
Well, our contract runs through week 17. You know, obviously within our contract, there's revisions about if the Bengals were to go to the playoffs. Obviously that's out this year. So our renegotiations would be March 12th, the day before free agency.
Well, what about we have this post? You invited Paul Dehner Jr. to our post-draft podcast that I didn't know.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to know about what goes on. Do I need to know about all of his contract negotiations? No. You know.
Yep.
That's how the business works. Okay. I'm a pro. I've been doing a podcast for 2 months.
Hey, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know the ins and outs. I know the game. Oh no, I really did want to say.
Wait, I think we're at a 4 right now. You can't put it at a 5 because I don't think we're anywhere near. But I think 4 of getting Nick Lachey. God.
Okay, but what are the chances are next week? I think we should do. You know, we've hit the riders pretty hard, and you know the contributors who report. But I think we should try to maybe bring back like Luke or the commish just to see where they're. I mean, I know what they're saying on Twitter, but or just fans in general. Or another thing I was thinking of too is you could do a mashup of the first 8 episodes and just kind of like clip the best if you ever wanted to do that. That would be like a project for.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
No, for like the end of the year.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like every one would just pick like a certain thing and put together like a best of or whatever. And we could both partner on that. Like I don't want to just give it to you and say, hey, go find the best clips. I can, you know, we'll listen.
If I go home, I'm gonna probably have a lot of time to do that. I'll do an ode to the podcast and get like a mashup, like a little montage.
That would be cool for the first time, and then we'll look at, you know, next year making changes, but we just need to finish this year strong. I'm having a blast doing it every year.
Aren't we not? Seriously, like
it just sucks.
Normally when I set an alarm for like 5:15 in the morning, I'm like, okay, I gotta keep pressing snooze. Once I'm up, and I'm ready to go because I get really excited about doing this. Like at first I hated this time slot. I don't mind it now, you know?
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing it for me. Now I do want to let you know that my schedule is going to be changing starting next week. Be working 5 days. So Monday and Tuesdays are gonna work the best, but I also have Wednesday mornings open.
Restaurants are shutting down tomorrow, so I'm not gonna be working for about a month. So
make sure you go talk to Uncle Sam.
I've talked to him. Uncle Sam, hey, we I think we're gonna be okay for at least up until February. But anyways, that's a completely off topic, as you can see we're going. But I want to end this before we make this an hour. People are like, oh my God, what do they say after that? Oh, we start talking.
Oh, we can cut it after a certain point. But I just kind of want to finish this up with, from my standpoint, it was a fun episode to do. PDJ has been in our lives for over a decade. And so it was cool. There's some of the people that we're getting, like, I can't believe that we've been listening to them.
No, I can't either. I really can't.
So we'll continue to go. I think, next week we'll be back. I don't have any really hope that we're going to win on Sunday.
I don't care. I know that sounds bad. I could care less. I mean, we do need to win. Honestly, if we're going to win some games, let's win week 15, and I don't care. After that, you know.
It's all about player development. I didn't like his identity answer.
What do you mean?
I think he earned a spot.
No. Identity?
Yeah.
I'm with PDJ 100%. If
you don't think he could play? You don't think he could play on that team with a little bit more for the next? Yeah, all he has to worry about is developing.
My answer is going to change, obviously, if we don't.
Because you were just singing the praises of this young man not a week ago. We were joking.
Yeah, but then you watch that play at right tackle. Unless they're going to move him to left tackle and put Jonah on the right side, I'm not. Because
why can't he play guard?
We need to stop flipping guards and moving guards. We have Quentin Spain. I don't know. Maybe we'll sign a guard. Heaven forbid. Dude.
I liked the name Brandon Sheriff.
I heard that name too. I smiled. You'll catch that when we talk about that. Dude, if we're selected number 3 and that Oregon kid's there, like he said, don't even blink. Adena who? You know?
Right.
But
then you have your corner, you have your tackles, and you have Trey in the middle. I almost did, you know.
No. I was laughing because of role models. So wait, you're the coach. Yeah, I'm the coach. I'm the point guard. I'm the 2 forwards. I'm the center. I'm the other guard.
But
For that kid. Sorry.
I guess my thinking behind it is I'm trying to balance the checkbook here. And if you have a kid that is progressively getting better, and yeah, he had one pretty bad play, but but we've even agreed that play necessarily wasn't the blame on completely on the offensive line. It wasn't a free run. I don't know. I just think you put at this point with the offensive line, you put your best 5 people there, and it doesn't matter if they played tackle, guard, or center. It doesn't. If you're covering your ends or your tackles with Jonah and this new kid from Oregon, if that's how it goes out, I think the next 2 spots, your right and left guard, need to be your 2 best.
This is a guess I would love to get. I would love to get freaking. I know this is a long shot because we haven't seen him since he coached us. Coach Munoz, getting him on the show. Because what I want to ask him is if they draft this kid and we sign Carl Lawson and he's number 58, you see freaking Michael Irvin all the time giving out number 88. Would he give a reboot of 78 out to this kid if he ended up coming in here and being the number 3 overall pick like he was? Well, we don't know until we ask Coach.
78 belongs in the rafters at PBS. And now if we were the Patriots or the Cowboys that have an abundance of numbers, or like LSU and Notre Dame, like they always have the number 7 or 10 that they give out, that there's been plenty of players that have worn number 7 for LSU that has been, that it could have been retirement worthy. No, I think 78 just stays up there until we win 6 Super Bowls and we have an abundance of Hall of Famers. I think we're stuck with just 78 being in the rafters for now, as it should be.
All right. Yeah, honestly, it should be. It's not even in the rafters. It's nowhere around the stadium. There's not even a statue, and he's the greatest tackle of all time. That's another conversation. Sorry.
See, that's the thing, though. Like, and this is PDJ I appreciate you asking that question. I kind of knew the answer before then because I knew that how that lease thing kind of works, because that's what happened with St. Louis.
That's why and every time something bad happens, that lease always comes up, and my stomach just sinks. I'm like, I feel that energy, but I think the energy fluctuates with wins and losses. But sorry, continue.
But anyway, so I knew that it wasn't going to be anything immediate, but Peyton Manning, when did Lucas Oil open? I think it was like 06 or 08. He was 7 or 8 years in. If Burrow gets to his second contract, gets to that 6th, 7th year mark, and like he said, here he comes, we're going to talk about the stadium again. I don't think that PBS is going to change, or we're going to build a new stadium, maybe make renos to it. But an indoor practice facility, yes, I think would be on the top of his wish list. And then an improvement to the stadium. But I don't see where they would put a new one. I don't see what the taxpayers in Cincinnati would even want to pay for it. Maybe in Kentucky, but definitely not in Cincinnati proper.
But I mean, and I didn't want to, because I also had this question in my Pokemon ball that I wanted to throw out, which was, because I don't want to keep beating it. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but I just keep watching all the NBA and how many players trade teams. Like, I'm not ready to take my eyes off that, because you look at all these franchise quarterbacks like Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. Like, it seems like if you get drafted by a team, the understanding is you're most likely going to stay with that team. It's not going to be this big, LBJ decision. And I didn't want to keep bringing up like, hey, do you think he's going to be here? Like, I have heard nothing within the media that we follow that you can trust that says he's going to leave. Everything else, you ask ESPN right now, not even ESPN. Ben Baby's an awesome guy, but like, you know what I mean? Like the big wigs, like Greeny and all those guys, Bird, whatever. They would say, oh, he'll be gone. Like, so I mean, I just think it's just, I didn't want to ask that, but I wanted to just that assurance that, dude, this is our guy. Regardless, yes, he got hurt, but this is our guy for the next 10 years, which I would love nothing more.
Yeah, but I think a point that hasn't been brought up, and it will never be, because remember, ESPN and like Fox Sports and CBS Sportsline, those are national things. So for them, or national media bases, for them to talk about Joe Burrow, it better be watchworthy or clickbaitable. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to use terms like, should he stay? Should he go? When in all actuality, if you look back at the draft, it just took one question from PDJ, and that settled a lot of things. And I don't think that the realistic outcome of Joe Burrow following a similar path that Carson Palmer did, I don't think that'll happen. I think there's two different players. And I think the Bengals have already done the front office standpoint has already done a job of kind of already assuring Joe Burrow that it's not going to be anything similar. Now, as far as the coaching staff goes, that remains to be seen. That also being said, the Bengals dictate his contract. The Bengals can pay more than anybody. I mean, if Joe Burrow is money driven whatsoever, and this team shows a little bit of bounce back next year, and then goes into his third and fourth year as those contract discussions become more apparent, then yeah, I do think Joe Burrow he could get a $500 million contract like Patrick Mahomes, and Cincinnati could structure it to the point where they don't have to pay a bulk of that until 10 years down the road. That's exactly what Kansas City did. It was the smartest thing they could have done, because now their window to win a title for the next 4 or 5 years, that's why they can bring on Le'Veon Bell. They can bring on more and more pieces because they have a window now to win. Now, 5-6 years down the road, Kansas City's going to have some decisions to make, but they don't have to make those decisions now, and they're setting themselves up to go back-to-back and potentially even next year, back-to-back-to-back. Mahomes is only on the books for like $1.25 million this year. That is the reigning MVP. MVP from 2 seasons ago, and the reigning Super Bowl MVP and champion is on the books for $1.25 million. That is ridiculous. And that's something similar that I think is going to happen with Burrow. The only difference is Kansas City had already all these pieces kind of in place, whereas in our defense is not near to the point to keep up with our offense.
Yeah. So, but like I said, there's a thousand questions that you could ask about what do the Bengals do next year? Do they get a backup quarterback? Do they get all these, so many things you could elaborate on, but I really think the meat and potatoes, as you alluded to, in a perfect, phrase to use with Thanksgiving coming tomorrow. I can't wait to freaking send you my annual tweet tomorrow. I can't believe that's tomorrow. You know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And are you going to send me the picture that you normally send me?
Yes.
Okay. But anyways, we really did get to the meat and potatoes of everything that we needed to get to. And I think that I'm going to put 2 separate podcasts. I'm going to put up until PDJ and then post PDJ for everybody. Probably will break record views with people who want to watch us talk.
27.
So
20,
what up?
27, 28 listeners. Would keep climbing.
Hey, dude. Hey now. Hey, you know what? You know what? Just while we're on here for the last bit of it, as we always say, until we talk another 20,000 minutes, let's see if Nick Lachey follows Paul Dehner Jr. He does not. Okay.
Dan Horde has the most views at 47.
Really? I thought Commish does at 55, 57.
Oh, whoops. I didn't realize that we have more videos.
Yeah, we have a couple. That's when I used to freaking clip individual segments, but that really wasn't getting hit. So now I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. Watch the pod. It's fine.
We're here.
Yep. And we're doing it.
We're doing it. Have fun.
All right. Well,
good.
Yeah. So as always, it's a lot better situation for you than the last time we got a pod done because you had like 2 hours of sleep. So you weren't trying to get back to bed. So if you could send that my way, I'm about to go on my run. I always listen to my run, and then I'll get this thing edited and put out by tonight.
Sounds good. Love you. Talk soon.
Yeah. All right. Love you too. Bye.
Bye.